Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this live edition for the Framingham Early Childhood Alliance. My name is Pat Cameron, and I am the Director of Family Ties at the Federation for Children with Special Needs. And it's my pleasure to be with all of you to offer you some suggestions, particularly if you are the parent of a child with special needs, whether your child is in early intervention or the early childhood special education program, or even up into the early elementary grades and onward. And this program is called Let's Get Organized. And so we're recording this session so that the Alliance can post it and play it again at an earlier time. But right now I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. So as I said, my name is Pat Cameron, and the Let's Get Organized is a program, a training that's offered by Family Ties of Massachusetts. We are a project at the Federation for Children with Special Needs. Let's see. Family Ties is a parent-run organization. We have a staff across the Commonwealth. And every person is also a parent of a child with special needs. And so we come to this not only with our professional hats on, but also with our parent hats on. We are all parents of kids birth to 22 and above. My daughter is 37. And we help families seek out the resources and services that they need in order to have a fuller life with their sons and daughters with disabilities. Family Ties is, as I said, has their parent coordinators that provide all of the information and resources and answer questions for families as they go through each of the different milestones, diagnoses and testing and so forth around having a child with special needs. We offer particularly emotional support through our parent-to-parent program. And we have a parent-to-parent coordinator who serves the Commonwealth, and we can match families with a variety of services. We publish a directory of resources. It's affectionately known as our Pink Bible. And this is our brand new revised directory for 2021. Which had a lot of edits due to the pandemic and many services being curtailed. We also maintain the central directory for early intervention. And so we have an 800 number, which will be available for you at the end of this presentation to connect families with the EI program in their area. Oftentimes we'll get calls directly from families, and anyone can refer a child birth to 3 for early intervention services for any kind of developmental delay or risk factor. And then we also offer skill building workshops, such as we have here with the Let's Get Organized. We also have a program called for self-care. We have a program for listening and learning, which is our support parent training for parent to parent. So let's get organized. Let's talk about what this looks like. If you have a child with disabilities or special needs, you will realize that you are just inundated with the paperwork. And you think of all the different kinds of paperwork. There's IFSPs, the Individual Family Service Plan, if your child is in early intervention. You have the IEP, the Individualized Education Program, if your child is in preschool or the elementary age and up. And then you also might have medical records if your child has complex medical needs. And so the piles can, just keep stacking up. And so this workshop is really an opportunity for you to sort of get it all under control and think about all the different things that are needed in order to organize yourselves. Now, this can be a virtual binder, in this day of electronics and technology. You could be putting this all on a laptop. scanning documents and so forth, or you could be putting literally it into a binder. And we're going to focus on that binder program today. If you are anything like I was when my daughter was younger, you bring things home, it gets plopped on the kitchen table, the dining room table, the desk in the spare bedroom. Everybody sort of has a place around the house. And so when you think about where are all your piles, this is an opportunity to sort of organize all of that so you can determine there's going to be one place. And actually, I'm going to recommend a couple of places because your binder should only be holding the most recent information. And then we'll talk a little bit later about long-term storage within filing cabinets and electronic versions and so forth. So if you think about all of the different things that you have that come into the home, whether you attended a meeting and you brought home paperwork, whether it gets mailed to you at a later date, your sons and daughters bring things home in their backpack. There are just an array of sources to all of this paper. And many times when you need to look for something, it's going to be hard to find. And so that's another reason to organize. And you really want to make sure that things are all in makes sense, that they're all categorized, that you've got the original copies if you need that, and you've got spare copies. If it's something that you typically give out, like copies of your children's immunizations, copies of any medications your children take, a list of emergency contacts, family members, and so forth. Make multiple copies of those and have those in your notebook. So you really want to make, another way of organizing and not getting rid of that original copy. So think about the times with, that you go to meetings and you really want to be able to have things at your fingertips. It's another good reason to be organized. And you can use in the photograph you may see here, you've got folders within your binder so that things can be organized in a fashion. I have a binder here, put my daughter's picture here. I've got section fold, that's divided into different sections. You can have them labeled and so forth. And it really gives you an opportunity to really stay organized and have a place for everything. You really want this to be an opportunity to introduce your child. If you go into a team meeting, whether you're at EI or if you have, even in this virtual world, have this available so that we all remember why we're here. Who is it we're here to talk about? And oftentimes when children are young, they're not attending their team meetings. And so again, having that opportunity literally to have a visual, plop it down, stand it up on the table, which is the benefit of having this hard copy of a notebook, so that everybody's reminded of who they're here focused on. And it can be photographs of your child, it can be copies of your child's artwork. It's really an opportunity for people to see the child and not the paperwork, not the statistics, not the assessments, in and of themselves, but to really focus on why you're here and who you're here focused on. So maybe these scenes look very familiar to you. We are all juggling so many things in our lives, childcare, grocery shopping, phone calls, the bedlam that is life nowadays. And to be able to organize in a way will alleviate some of the stress that comes from just being a parent in 2021. And having those opportunities to feel like you're on top of things, it's a wonderful feeling. It's a boost in your confidence. And when you can present yourselves in meetings in a much more organized fashion. So when we think about what's in the notebook, and you want to think about what do you need to be keeping track of, I can can't express enough the wealth of information that will be in this binder. If you keep phone logs, if you think about all those different phone calls coming in from the school, coming in from the teacher, coming in from the doctor, keep track, literally keep a phone log, and then follow it up with an email, because again, you want to make sure that you reiterate any decisions or changes in treatment or prescriptions or days attending and therapy schedules and so forth, are all followed up in writing. And so you make sure that you get all that contact information from everyone who you are in contact with. A calendar, like, again, how many meetings, when's a good time. If you happen to be also a working parent, you really need to be having your work calendar available, whether it's on your phone or a literal calendar, so that when people are making appointments and so forth, you can confirm then and there whether it works out, and you can even discuss possible dates and so forth and have those available. So it's, again, another organization tip. The illustration at the bottom shows that binder with all of the different categories and so forth. And again, this can all be done electronically. And if you do an electronic folder, you want a portable device that you can take to a meeting, that you can pull up, that's not required to be connected to the internet. So my suggestion is you don't save things to the cloud, that you're saving hard copies within folders and files. And again, having those photographs uploaded into your digital binder as well. And so it all depends on what your technology is and what your comfort level is. But I would encourage you, load it full of photos, so that again, you're talking about your son or daughter, and all of that is focused on who you're there meeting about. So I want to take a minute and see if there are any ideas that you all have. And if you're sitting there watching this with someone else, have a conversation about, what does this mean for you? How can you do this as a family? And how can you organize things? Think about all those places in your home where the paperwork has a habit of piling up. And if you're a family with a very young child and you don't have that much paperwork yet, I would just say, the day will come when you will have a lot of paperwork. So it's best to stay ahead of this and organize yourselves and think about, what are the challenges that you have yet to master? So what do you need to build that binder? And I would suggest that you can order these things right off Amazon or Staples or whatever home office, office supply company that you particularly like. And, as I showed, the 3-ring binder with the sleeve in the front so that you can load up pictures and so forth. The dividers that go along with that. Page protectors so that you can insert multiple copies of that immunization record, 2 years worth of an IEP or IFSP, and so forth. Your zippered pencil case so that you can have highlighters, Post-it notes, paper clips, even the 3-hole punch, so that everything goes in there. And then here's a business card sheet. And these, how many of you get appointments, cards and so forth when you leave the doctor's office, when you're meeting new people, new therapists at school, when you're in a situation where you are trying to gather all of those specialists who may be working and interacting with you and your family and your child. And so you can write right on these the last time you met, the phone number, and how to best get a hold of that particular therapist. Most of all, you want to bring your imagination. And so think about how you can craft this in a way that really promotes the strengths and wonderful skills that your son or daughter have. Then it becomes a matter of sorting through everything. Where do you start? Think about all of that, the cover of your binder and how you want to portray your son and daughter. And whether it's photographs, whether it's art, whether it's a combination. And it can change as your son and your daughter grows up, the new school pictures, the family vacations, siblings, who is it? Because remember, your child is part of your family. And when you're introducing your son and daughter and you are in meetings, people need to know that your child is part of a larger family network. Does Nana and Grandpa live with you? Are you close to a family group? So that you can really articulate the importance of family. You want to be able to have the IEP, the IFSP, or 504 plan in there. Any healthcare plan, if your child has complex medical needs, allergies, and so forth, what are those plans for medication and treatments that happen within the school day? And any therapy reports. If there's particular equipment that you're using on a routine basis, whether that's something that's happening just in the home and you want families to know about that. And I'm sorry, there's my cat joining in the choir. And then you have medical records, including the current physical, any summary of health concerns, and any medications that your child takes. And that particular page, you may want multiple copies of, and always keep it up to date. Dosages change. They move from one medication to another. And so you really want to keep that current. Information about any recreational activities and community opportunities. And this is really important because you really want staff to know what your child's full life is and whether you're engaged in a faith organization and, and what are those opportunities at the Y and swimming lessons, summer camp, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. And so that, the school sees, the early intervention program sees the wide, rich life that your son or daughter has in the context of not just your family, but in the community as well. And then other topics that are are of interest to you and your sons and daughters. Are they engaged in videos? Do they, have a particular interest and skill in different activities in the home? And then think about, why do I still have this? And we'll talk a little bit about the Ohio principle. Ohio stands for only handle it once. And, do you still need it? So think about as you're going through all that paperwork, is it something that you have to hold on to? Because as I said earlier, the stacks can stack up. So you want to gather the most recent school and medical information for your notebook. Again, have those sections laid out so that there's a personal section for your child. There's an educational section and a medical section if that's relevant for your child. And organize your binder by date, by doctor, or however you find it easiest to do. And have the most recent document at the top, supported by the one that came immediately before that. So again, holding on to 2 years worth of information in a binder so that you can look at progress. You can look back and say, we had the same goal. I'd really like to talk about either altering the strategy if your child hasn't achieved the goal, and be talking about what's the best approach to learning for your son or daughter. And so all of this can be, at your fingertips when you're in a meeting, because it's very difficult to recall some of those things in the moment. So having this binder with you can be so helpful. So here's a couple of helpful tips. And we talked a little bit about this earlier. you want to have that picture, the artwork, or something right at the front. And again, literally standing the binder up so that when you're in the meeting, it's sitting right there on the table. And sharing it, be proud of it. We're all proud of our children. And so having a way, particularly if you're, in a transition and you're introducing your child for the first time to, next year's preschool teacher, or, whatever is coming up as your child transitions from one program into the next. And then think about, how you can articulate this. For people who are going to be meeting and working with your child. Can't express enough the importance of the photographs, and really articulating who your child is in the context of your family, in the context of your community, so that everybody gets a complete picture of what it is to have a child with special needs. We talked a little bit about those business cards and the business card folder, and being able to have that available so that you can keep track of new people. If someone leaves the district, remove that card so that you're not inclined to call an old number, and replace it with whoever the new person is. If you've got a lot of doctor's appointments, this can come in particularly handy. As maybe your child is seen by multiple specialists in the area of disability or special need. And so you really want to take care of, stay on top of that. And again, you can order these business card holders through any office supply company. Keeping those appointments, you want to connect those appointment cards with your calendar and coordinate all of that, so that you stay on top of any obligations and opportunities to interact with people who are serving your child. This notebook can also come in very handy if your child has repeated surgeries, or even just one surgery, that first surgery. Being able to have the notebook, take it with you, particularly if you're keeping track of medications and routines, your education plan, whether it's your IFSP or your IEP, can inform staff at a hospital about the activities and treatments and so forth that your child is getting during the school day. And think about if you've got an upcoming, extended hospital stay, you can also, in the front or back of the notebook, have a pocket where you can keep takeout menus, because this tip came from somebody that we had attend one of our workshops as well. If you're far away from home and not inclined to enjoy hospital food, although it's getting better and better, you may want to be able to order out, and particularly during this pandemic, be able to get food delivered and so forth. Because once, with the COVID extreme protocols, once you're in the hospital, it's not advised to leave and come back, leave and come back, leave and come back. So again, it's just another convenience to have, particularly if you're working with a child with complex medical needs. So what doesn't go in the binder? And so, obviously there's only so much room in a binder. And you think about what's the easiest way to store things. And, have a file cabinet at home. I definitely have mine. And I'm the type of parent who holds on to all the IEPs, all the IFSPs, all the artwork, all the projects, and so forth. And so have a way that you can store things. And it just sort of tucks in beside, it actually acts as a nightside table in my guest room. And so put a little cloth over it, works perfectly. And, and so think about the ways that you can store things. Again, you want to keep if you're the type that holds on to things for historical sense, then, you've got a place to put it. You can also scan them, things that you don't have a binder, have a hybrid model where you've got a binder with the current information, and then you're scanning things to an electronic file for those that can be stored electronically. In that filing cabinet, you can also keep resources. It doesn't have to be just archived information. And so, think about, are there, you can be doing research now for, if you find a program that sounds wonderful for your child to enjoy in summer camp, but they're still, a toddler, hold on to something. Keep a file for future reference. Keep a file in there if you're thinking about trusts and, guardianship when that comes up. And any work and volunteer opportunities, any transition. And this happens throughout your child's, son and daughter's age. When you think about, okay, my toddler at 20 months and so forth, in another 10 months, may be thinking about preschool and what does that look like? If you are settled in a community, you can start looking at all of those. When we all get back to attending in person, sometimes preschool can be hard to locate because it's in high demand. And so think about, doing some research ahead of time and so forth. Any work or volunteer opportunities that you can do as a family, you can sort of store away for future reference, recreation programs and so forth. Any skill building, advocacy tips, we're associated with the Federation for Children with Special Needs. We're one project of many at the Federation. And you can think about, do you want to take a basic rights workshop and so forth? All of those are available on our website. And I'll have a contact at the end of this presentation. So think about all of the other things that you could be storing away in this filing cabinet. It may not be appropriate to go in your binder, but again, these are a way to keep all of that from stacking up. If that's the way, we started with trying to get through all of those piles and organize. As I mentioned before, when you have communication with the schools, with a doctor and so forth, follow things up with, some sort of written communication, whether that's the old-fashioned letter, stick a stamp on it and mail it, or if it's an email, be strategic about how you conduct that information. You want to make sure that your letters are courteous and to the point. Something succinct will get the attention and will be read. You want to make sure that you have all your contact information in there and not just a return email address, but your phone number and so forth. Date your correspondence. Follow it up, after a phone call saying, thank you so much for having that conversation with me. I just want to confirm that this is what we agreed on. And I look forward to, Johnny or Susie starting this, new approach next Monday, the 19th, which, just whatever happens in that conversation, you are reiterating in a letter. So I'm a little ahead of myself. So make sure that you've got everything in there, clearly stating the outcomes that you're expecting. If you're expecting them to respond to you, give them every opportunity of when you are available. And there's just a few ways to contact you as well. Don't leave matters unresolved. And so I think that that's just an important thing. You want to make sure that you are communicating in a way that is constructive and supportive and that to the point. And particularly if there was, if you disagreed with something, you really want to come at this from a resolution, standpoint. So think about what the possible scenarios will be to come to some resolution. Be constructive and expect that in return. And don't forget to say thank you. You can't thank people enough. With all of the people that will be interacting with you and your family and your child, they there can be multiple opportunities to say thank you. So you can send that letter or card out, even just to say thank you. And this is the week of the young child, and you may want to reach out to those people who are interacting with your sons and daughters, particularly during this week, but at any time, to say thank you and how much you appreciate their interactions and so forth. So here's a couple more tips. Keep a copy, keep a copy, keep a copy. And, again, don't give out that original. You may want to label the original list. We've got some background noise, so if you are on and want to put yourself on mute.
So I'm going to show you my real medium-sized, flat-chested.
And we've got, I don't know if it's a TV or something playing, but if you can mute, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Don't say anything in a letter that you wouldn't say in person. So again, don't hide behind the guise of communication. You want to establish honest and upfront relationships with schools and programs, and be authentic, be the way that you would be in person, even though it might be a little easier and less intimidating to put something in writing than it would be to say it. But you should be bringing your authentic self to meetings. And try not to be antagonistic or sarcastic. That serves no purpose whatsoever. You can definitely be humorous, but do it in a way that is healthy and not sarcastic. If you require an assurance that your letter was received, go ahead and send it certified mail, return receipt requested. So that when you have that opportunity, if you are delivering important information via the mail, signed consent forms, for example, particularly when kids are transitioning and you want to make sure that the clock starts ticking when they receive your signed consent, send it return receipt requested. And then again, remember to write those thank you notes. People always appreciate being recognized and acknowledged. So we've talked a little bit about, your education experiences, whether it's within EI or if it's within the early childhood special education program, but who else should know your child? And when you're thinking about being organized in a way, particularly if your child is nonverbal, you may want to think about strategies to introduce your child to first responders, particularly, in the event that there's an emergency. Who are the people in your community who would be advantage? It would be an advantage if they knew ahead of time that your child was nonverbal, or if your child had intellectual disabilities and may not be able to follow commands in an emergency about going someplace or evacuating the house, and so forth. So think about those times when it's not an emergency, of introducing your child to the police, to the local fire department, the local EMTs, emergency services, and even your utility company. Particularly if your child is technology dependent, and if there's a power loss and you lose electricity, do you have a backup generator? And if not, the utility company really needs to know that your child, depends on a trach or depends on, some sort of breathing apparatus, or even if it's occasional and not 24/7, to be able to have these conversations again, when it's not an emergency, in this planful way. We have resources on our website that you can fill out and so forth. We also have, and I'm just bend out of view here, these emergency response cards that you can have, again, filling it out ahead of time. We've got ones that have magnets that, stick onto your refrigerator. All first responders are trained to look for this. These are the wallet size ones. And we have, again, magnet ones that go up on top of your refrigerator that list all the different medical conditions that your son or daughter may have, any medications and so forth. so that if in the event of an emergency, you're all evacuated to a hospital or a care center, that can go too. And again, you may not have time to grab your notebook with your list of medications and so forth, but you could have this in your wallet and have that available in the case of an emergency. But again, this takes planning. All of this takes planning. And, and so you really want to set aside that time that it takes to get organized. Think about the benefits. I mean, this was a huge relief to so many families when they realized the benefits of having this, the reaction that they got when they took their notebook into a meeting. And so, congratulations for taking this step and being in a position where you really want to feel accomplished and, put things in order so that you have everything there for your son or daughter in that notebook or in that electronic binder. So here's the, what we call the icing on the cake. Being more organized and effective with your time gives you more control. It boosts that self-esteem that you have when you go into a meeting. There, everybody comes in with their folders, their paperwork and so forth, and you've got everything there at your fingertips. And you can relax. You can relax in a meeting. You know that you've got everything together. You are, scheduled and organized. And then think about, scheduling more fun. It helps you normalize as a family, being able to include those recreational opportunities, intentionally thinking about, where can we go? I know in this pandemic, my family, we joined the Audubon Society, and so that we could go, because that's all we can do is go outside and be outside and, and walk the trails and so forth. And we were at Drumlin Farm yesterday, absolutely wonderful and very accessible. So think about, how these new activities or reconnect with past interests that you've put on hold, and think about, yes, keep that positive attitude. You can do this and make a plan. So here's some additional resources that I want to offer you. Understood.org has a wide variety of resources for kids and families, and they have their own version of building a binder. Think about the Department of Health and all of the resources, particularly again, if your child has special needs, special healthcare needs. There are a bunch of resources within the Department of Public Health. And if your child has complex medical needs, the whole paradigm of medical home can be very helpful. Medical home is not a place, it's an approach. And think about all the resources that are there, particularly if you're new into this, it's a new experience for you and your family about having a child with complex medical needs. Think about, how you can find resources in establishing that medical home. So here's my contact information. I am available Monday through Friday, all times, with email and so forth. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me around this project or any other further training that you or a parent group might appreciate. And here's the larger context of Family Ties. This is our 800 number. This is our website. We have a lot of resources on our website as well, massfamilyties.org. We have, if you're thinking about being planful about contacting your first responders ahead of time, we have a list of resources that you can be gathering to share. And then again, if your child has special education needs, the Federation is there to answer all of your questions around IEP development and team meetings, procedural safeguards, and following everything that's required there. They offer parent training as well in understanding basic needs. We have a fabulous Essentials of Turning 3. And so as children are leaving early intervention and moving on to special education or wherever they go, in Massachusetts, only 40% of the children leaving early intervention will go on to special education, will be eligible for special education. But obviously they go on somewhere. And so think about what are those approaches that you want to be thinking about as children start, turning 3 and moving on. So I want to thank you very much. I appreciate being invited to join your Week of the Young Child. And I don my hat in all respect. And so I will stop sharing and see if there are any questions. And I appreciate this opportunity. All right, well, I hope you enjoy the rest of this week with activities that are happening throughout the week, and would really